All right, guys, welcome. Today's date is July the 11th, 2018. I want to do a little bit of a trade review. This is my latest trade that I did. Was holding this for a few days, and I want to talk about it. I want to go over it a little bit for everybody that's watching. So this is the AUD New Zealand trade. This was actually a pretty good trade setup. There were some scary moments in the trade, I'll be honest. It was doing some things that I was not quite expecting, so it had me a little bit nervous. But overall, the trade setup was very good. So I just want to go over it briefly, though, to kind of talk about the good and the bad of the setup, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, so you can kind of see how I think about these things. I was looking for a short on this, and you can see that we did come down a little bit here in the last week or two. Not a lot, though. Wasn't expecting a lot of pips out of this trade. Let me repeat myself. I was not expecting a lot of pips out of this trade, so I did take some, took about 70 pips on it, but not a lot of pips because of the way this thing was setting up. So let's go ahead and go over this right now. This is the AUD New Zealand. Again, the level that I was watching for is going to be right up in here. I was looking for a small push down off of this area right up in here, and the reason for that is you can see right over here you have a top in this market. The top up here was right around 109.60, 109.61, and then you had a nice little push down right here. This is the daily chart, by the way. You had a nice little push down right here, another pullback up, couldn't quite make it back up to create a double top. And then we had a pretty dramatic sell-off after that. Once we created a bottom, by the way, the top over here was right around 109.60, and the bottom over here was right around 106.50. So we had a nice 300 pip drop on this chart. Now, the next thing we saw is we saw price begin to push up pretty quickly. In fact, if you go to the weekly time frame, let's zoom in just a little bit. Here's, again, the top. We have a nice push down. It took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars to create this push down. And then we saw 1, 2, 3 bars on our push up. That is some pretty strong momentum pushing into those levels, which can make this a little bit scary. But the reason why I was willing to take the trade was because we had 2 levels down, and then we pushed straight back up to the upper level without any kind of pullback. This is what I define in my course as a minor structure level. These levels work pretty good, especially if they are the high of your chart. On the daily chart, it was not, but it was on the H4 chart. So I treated this as an H4 trade setup. The other thing you're going to notice is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 days in a row of upside right into our level. You will notice a very small down candle right here. I'm kind of ignoring that right there. But anytime you have 9, 10, 11, 12 days of movement in one direction and then you move into a major level, there's a very good chance that it's getting ready to push down off of that because prices are getting very overextended. You can also see my THV down here. Very overextended. We have not been this high in a really long time. So there was a pretty good chance. Again, the big reason why I was willing to take this is we had 2 waves down and then we had a complete push to the top here. So price was very, very overextended. If you know the way I trade, I like to see very overextended situations when I'm getting into a trade. That makes me feel much better about it. Now, the bad of the trade, going to the weekly time frame here. Again, this is the push up. Notice my momentum indicator pushing up. And then we pull back down. This is a 61.8 retracement, by the way. I know I draw these backwards. I always do. But you're going to see that we pulled back 61.8, 61.8, and here is the 38.2. Add them together, that is 100%. So we did have a 61% retracement back down, which makes us a pretty good level. But the thing that I want you to really notice about this is when we push down right here, this momentum indicator barely dropped at all. Anytime you see that situation setting up, you have to be very careful shorting the top up here because a lot of times when the momentum is still that strong and you push back into resistance, it's able to blow right through the top. So luckily in this case, we didn't have that. We did have a stop run, which came tremendously close to my stop loss, I might add, but didn't quite get stopped out here. And then you can see that it reversed back down again. Going back to the 4-hour time frame, though, this is the time frame that I took the trade off of. This is my CRT template. Again, typically my entries are going to be right here and right here. These tend to be my CRT entries. If you can't figure it out, just study the chart just a little bit. You'll see we had quite a few tops, and I do mean quite a few tops right here, and then there was an ultimate top here. Typically, that is where the market's going to reverse at. In this case, though, we had this nice big candle up moving into the beginning of the London session. This is where I went to bed thinking I was getting stopped out because my stop loss was right around here. We were tremendously close to somewhere up in here. We were very, very close to my stop loss. Again, I don't like big, wide stop losses. And one of my other rules for trading is I need to have a reward equal to my risk. So if I'm expecting a stop loss up here, if we get stopped out, I don't want to lose any more than what my first target would be, which is down here, by the way. But we did come into this region up here. This is my CRT level. Again, this is going to be a daily chart level that we just talked about right over here. But going back to the 4-hour, we're trading on the 4-hour time frame. This is a qualified, what I call a CRT trade, right up here at the top, and it is a max move, which is very, very crucial to this trade setup. So we have that as well. The other thing to note about this is the reason why I got into the trade also. Notice this push from the bottom down here all the way up into this level. There was almost no pullback even on the H4 chart. When I say pullback, I mean a close below my bands. We had a small one right here and barely right here as well. So we basically pushed all the way into this top with almost no pullback whatsoever. And so price to me was getting very, very exhausted, which made me really like the trade setup. Again, I have my stop loss up here, not because it needs to be that far away, but because I realize a lot of times the market, especially on a 4-hour time frame, is going to do stop runs, and I don't want to get stopped out on a perfectly good trade setup. Some people might say, well, let's put our stop loss right here. To me, that's an epic mistake because you're going to get stopped out a lot when you don't really need to. If you're on a higher time frame, I trade a lot of daily and weeklies also. If you're on a higher time frame, you don't necessarily need to have a stop loss that far in terms of average daily range, which is what I use to determine my stop losses here. But this was our typical entry zone on this pair. What I want to say, though, is my entry zone was actually a little bit lower. Let me show you where it was at. It was 109.20. This is the level that I gave out on my Telegram. 109.20 to 109.50. Why did I enter here? Why was this my range for shorting the market? Because we were in a very exhausted situation, and most of the time when you have price moving like this, it is not going to make it up to the top. It's going to stop early, and it's going to reverse back down. In this situation, that did not happen. In fact, we had a nice little spike. Like I said, we had a stop run up here, and then we came back down. And typically, the coral is a good target for me. My target on this, however, was 108. Let me see if I can draw it on here properly. 108.65, which was almost the bottom. And then once we got into there, I took off. I actually, on my personal account, I actually went from 109.50. I took off this position, and I ran this all the way down here. So I made about 85 pips. What I suggested to everybody, though, was to take off half. I did take off half, a little more than half because my average was 109.35. But I suggested people take off half and then put a break-even stop on the other half, which is what I did. And guess what? My break-even stop was 109.35. Let's zoom in, shall we? 109.35 was my stop loss right here. Guess where price came up to? 109.34.4. Because of the spread, I got stopped out for break even on the rest. So I took off half for 85 pips, and then the other half basically a break even. So overall, though, I think the average was 70 pips because I think I took negative 15 on this, and then I took 85 on the other. So the overall average was 70 pips. So Still a pretty good trade. Again, like I said, wasn't expecting a tremendous amount of pips, so my targets were not all the way down to here, nothing crazy. What I did say was this was my first target, and my second target was going to be down in here if it should keep going. Was expecting a push up based on the momentum begin to turn on the H4 down here, and that's when we saw our pop, and now we're just kind of doing nothing here. It's trying to make up its mind what it wants to do, but I promise you, if we continue to hold these highs and just consolidate up here, we're probably going to break to the upside and see more movement to the upside here. So, but that's the AUD New Zealand daily. Again, I cannot stress the importance of understanding these minor and even major structure levels. Again, the major don't pop up a lot, but the minor do pop up quite a bit. If you can understand that and understand how price action works and extensive situations like we had here, you'll do much better as a trader. But just want to throw this video out today because I did have some people on Facebook talking about this that I did give out to the premium group, and I wanted to kind of go over it to kind of give you guys an understanding of some of the things that I look for. But anyways, have a great week, and I'll see you guys in the next video.